Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong somewhere, even though you had every right to be there? Let me take you inside one of the most jaw-dropping stories I've ever heard. A moment where arrogance, prejudice, and pure power all collided in a way no one in that airport could have imagined. It was a warm afternoon in Atlanta. The international terminal was buzzing, travelers pulling sleek carry-ons, announcements echoing overhead, coffee cups in hand. And in the middle of all that calm walked Marcus Kane, a tall, well-built black man in his late 40s, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit and polished Italian shoes. His wrist carried a gold watch that gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but his demeanor, calm, quiet, almost humble. Marcus wasn't just any traveler. He was the CEO of a global tech firm worth hundreds of millions, but he wasn't the type to flaunt it. No entourage, no loud energy, just him, his passport, and a ticket to London for an important corporate summit. As he reached the VIP lounge, the attendant scanned his boarding pass and smiled politely. "Welcome, Mr. Kane." He took a seat near the window, sipping sparkling water, glancing occasionally at his phone. Minutes later, boarding began for first class and VIP passengers. Marcus walked down the jet bridge, feeling that familiar, quiet satisfaction of flying in comfort after years of working his way up from nothing. His seat, 1A, the best spot on the plane. But as Marcus approached his row, something was wrong. A white man in a gray business suit was already sitting in 1A, reclined, sipping champagne, acting like he owned the plane. Next to him stood a flight attendant, shifting uncomfortably before Marcus could even speak. The attendant said, "Sir, there's been a change. We'll need you to move to another seat." Another seat. Marcus glanced at his ticket, then back at her. "There must be a mistake," he said calmly. "This is my assigned seat. I paid for it." The attendant's eyes darted toward the man in the seat. She lowered her voice. "I'm sorry, sir, but this passenger is very important, a client of ours. We'd like to accommodate him." Marcus felt the tension rise in the cabin. Passengers were watching, some curious, some whispering. The man in 1A smirked, not saying a word, just owning the space. The thing is, no one knew who Marcus was. Not yet. And that's when the quiet fire in his chest began to build. Marcus took a slow, deep breath. His voice was steady, almost too steady. "I'm not moving." The flight attendant's professional smile twitched. "Sir, I understand, but we've already reassigned your seat." Marcus tilted his head. "Reassigned? Without asking me?" A second attendant appeared, this one with a slightly sharper tone. "Sir, we'll need your cooperation to avoid delaying departure." The man in 1A chuckled, sipping his champagne like this was all entertainment. Marcus looked directly at him. "Enjoying my seat, your seat," the man said with mock surprise. "I'm sure they'll find you something comfortable in business class." The audacity! Marcus could feel passengers' eyes boring into the scene, some with disapproval, others just waiting for drama. But Marcus didn't raise his voice. He simply took out his phone and made a single call. Marcus stepped back into the aisle, phone still in hand, his expression unreadable. He wasn't calling a friend. He wasn't calling a lawyer. He was calling his company's private jet department. "Hi, Carla," he said calmly, loud enough for the attendants and Mr. Champagne in 1A to hear. "I'll be delayed. The airline gave my seat to someone else. Go ahead and notify London I'll be late. And also, remind me to schedule a meeting with our aviation contracts team when I get back." The flight attendant's eyes widened slightly. The man in 1A paused mid-sip. Marcus ended the call, slipped his phone back into his jacket, and simply stood there, waiting. Not pleading, not arguing, just waiting. The second attendant leaned in. "Sir, we're just trying to make the best decision for all our guests." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "For all your guests, or just certain ones?" The question hung in the air. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. A couple in business class whispered, "I think I've seen him on TV." Then, just as the tension was thick enough to cut, the captain himself emerged from the cockpit, clearly briefed on the issue. "Sir," the captain began, "I understand you're unhappy." But Marcus cut him off, his voice still calm. "I'm not unhappy, Captain. I'm just observing and deciding." The captain frowned. "Deciding what?" Marcus smiled faintly, but there was steel in his eyes. "Whether I'll be keeping your airline in business after today." The cabin went dead silent. No one, not even the man in 1A, seemed to breathe. Marcus didn't sit down. He simply stepped aside, letting the captain and attendant shuffle awkwardly in the narrow aisle. From the corner of his eye, he saw a man in business class take out his phone and start typing furiously. Someone else whispered, "That's Marcus Ellison, isn't it?" The name traveled faster than the drink cart. A young attendant, clearly newer than the rest, approached cautiously. "Sir, forgive me, but are you the Marcus Ellison, CEO of Ellison Global?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He adjusted his cufflinks, the gold catching the overhead light, and looked her in the eye. "I am." Her face drained of color. The other attendants exchanged nervous glances. Even the captain straightened his posture, suddenly remembering that Ellison Global wasn't just another corporation. It was one of the airline's biggest investors. From 1A, the smirking white passenger's confidence faltered. His hand froze on his champagne glass. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" the captain asked, almost pleading. Marcus tilted his head. Should I have to? No one spoke. The quiet was deafening, interrupted only by the faint hum of the engines. In the back of the cabin, someone muttered, "They kicked him out. Are they insane?" Marcus looked down the aisle toward the passengers who had been watching everything unfold. Some smiled faintly at him, as if silently cheering him on. Others just stared wide-eyed. Then Marcus turned back to the captain. The voice was low, but it carried, "You've made 2 mistakes today. The first was assuming you knew my worth. The second," he paused, letting the moment breathe, "was underestimating the cost of insulting it." The captain swallowed hard. He knew exactly what Marcus meant and what was coming next. The captain cleared his throat, glancing toward the first-class galley where 2 senior flight attendants huddled, their voices low but urgent. Marcus stepped forward again, closing the gap between himself and the man in seat 1A. "Enjoying my seat?" he asked calmly. The man's smirk twitched. "They told me it was available. Not my fault you were late." "I wasn't late," Marcus replied. "I was early. You were just more important to them." His gaze flicked toward the flight crew, making it clear who them meant. The man shifted uncomfortably but didn't move. That's when Marcus pulled a sleek black leather wallet from his jacket. Not a wallet for cash, but a VIP executive access pass embossed with Airline's own gold insignia and a small, unmistakable BO under his name. The color drained from the captain's face. "Board of directors." The senior attendant's jaw dropped. "Sir, we didn't know." Marcus held up a hand. "Stop, you did know something. You knew I wasn't the passenger you wanted in this seat. You knew exactly who you preferred, and you made that choice loud and clear." No one dared respond. From somewhere in coach a voice called out, "Give him his seat back." Another chimed in, "This is ridiculous." Marcus didn't smile. He simply turned to the captain. "You can either fix this, or I'll do it my way." The captain hesitated, looking at the attendants, then at 1A. Slowly, the man in the seat stood, avoiding Marcus's eyes, and moved toward the back. Marcus took his seat, but the crew knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Marcus leaned back in seat 1A, adjusting his tie as the cabin settled into an uneasy quiet. The attendants hovered like shadows, unsure whether to approach or vanish. The captain lingered near the cockpit door, pretending to check something on his tablet but really just avoiding Marcus's eyes. Marcus pressed the call button. The ding was sharp in the silence. The senior attendant stepped forward nervously. "Yes, Mr. Ellison." Marcus didn't raise his voice, but each word was ice-cold and deliberate. "Call your corporate operations line now." Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled out the in-flight phone. The call was patched through on speaker, the corporate liaison answering cheerfully until Marcus introduced himself. "This is Marcus Ellison," he said smoothly. "I'm currently in seat 1A on your flagship flight, and I've just experienced the most blatant display of bias and disrespect from 3 members of your staff." The line went dead silent. Then I stammered, "Sir, I'm so sorry. Who are the staff members involved?" Marcus didn't hesitate. He looked directly at the 2 attendants and the captain, his tone like a verdict. He gave their names clearly, slowly, and without emotion. Corporate didn't waste a second. "Understood, Mr. Ellison. Effective immediately. They are relieved of duty. We'll have replacements waiting at your arrival gate." The color drained from their faces. The captain opened his mouth to speak, but Marcus's raised hand stopped him. "This isn't about a seat," Marcus said quietly, but loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. "It's about respect. And you lost yours the moment you decided mine wasn't worth keeping." The hum of the engines filled the void. Marcus looked out the window, the clouds parting below, and didn't look back. For a long moment, no one in first class said a word, but the energy had changed. Where there had been polite avoidance before, now eyes were locked on Marcus, wide with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. One man 2 rows back leaned forward. "That was the most satisfying thing I've seen in years," he whispered, just loud enough for Marcus to hear. A woman across the aisle gave a small nod of respect. They had it coming. Even a young flight attendant from the economy section who hadn't been part of the incident quietly slipped up to Marcus's seat. "Sir, I just want to say I'm sorry for how you were treated. That's not what this uniform should stand for." Marcus gave her a brief, genuine smile. "Thank you. That means more than you think." Meanwhile, the disgraced captain sat stiff in the jump seat, staring at the floor. The other 2 attendants avoided meeting anyone's gaze. Word traveled fast. Within minutes, whispers were moving down the aisles in coach. "Did you hear? The guy in first class just fired the captain." Phones were subtly raised, recording reactions, though no one dared film Marcus directly. Marcus wasn't basking in it. That wasn't his style, but he could feel something shifting around him. The passengers weren't just seeing a man who demanded his rights. They were seeing a man who had the power to make things right instantly. As the plane droned on through the clouds, Marcus knew one thing. This was only half the lesson. The rest would be taught after they landed. The descent into the city was smooth, but the atmosphere was anything but. The disgraced crew sat in silence. each second ticking like a drumbeat of dread. When the wheels touched down, Marcus stood, not abruptly, but with calm purpose. His presence filled the aisle before anyone else could move. Sharply dressed airline executives were waiting just outside the jet bridge, flanked by security. Passengers craned their necks to watch as Marcus stepped off the plane first, greeted with handshakes and hushed apologies. Then came the crew. The captain's face was pale, his jaw tight. The two senior attendants walked a few paces behind him, shoulders slumped, eyes on the floor. Security escorted them down the terminal, a slow, humiliating procession that every arriving passenger could see. Some passengers filmed discreetly, others simply stared. One man whispered to his travel companion. They looked at him like he didn't belong. Turns out they were the ones who didn't. Marcus exchanged a few quiet words with the executives. No shouting, no theatrics. Just the kind of low, authoritative conversation that told everyone watching exactly who was in control. As he walked toward the private exit, he passed a young black boy holding his mother's hand. The boy's eyes were wide, awe written all over his face. Marcus crouched slightly, giving the boy a smile. "Always remember you belong anywhere you choose to be." The boy's mother mouthed a silent thank you. Marcus gave a nod before continuing on. Marcus hadn't planned for the incident to go public. But in the age of smartphones, nothing stayed private for long. By the next morning, his name was trending, though many didn't know who he was at first. Headlines blared: passenger in first-class fights, discrimination mid-flight, and wins instantly. Airline fires entire crew after high-profile passenger confrontation. Clips and retellings of the moment flooded social media. People dissected his calm demeanor, his lack of raised voice, his precision when speaking. One post went viral, a grainy photo of Marcus walking off the plane, paired with the caption, "Move with power, speak with purpose, watch the world adjust." Within hours, Marcus was fielding calls from journalists, TV hosts, and business leaders. Some wanted interviews, others wanted to praise his actions. A few wanted to know if he was planning to sue the airline. He declined all offers, except one. A community radio station in his hometown invited him to talk, not about the airline, but about respect, equality, and leadership. Marcus knew that was the conversation worth having. "I didn't fire them because I could," he told the host. "I fired them because they showed the world what happens when you treat someone like they don't belong, and what happens when you're held accountable." 2 weeks later, Marcus was back in the air. Different airline, different flight. Crew greeted him warmly, but not with fear or overcompensation, just genuine respect. That's all he'd ever wanted. Midway through the flight, a young attendant stopped by. "Sir, I was on the same route that day," she admitted quietly. "I wasn't in your cabin, but I heard what happened." Taught a lot of us a lesson without even meaning to. Marcus gave a small chuckle. The best lessons aren't in the yelling, they're in the doing. As the plane cruised above the clouds, Marcus reflected on how quickly life could flip. In one moment, you're told to give up your seat. In the next, you're changing the rules for everyone. When the wheels touched down, he didn't linger for cameras or conversations. He simply picked up his briefcase, stepped into the terminal, and disappeared into the flow of travelers. Some victories don't need a spotlight. They just need to stand on. Marcus had stood, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong where they had every right to be.